know it.
It was only an Arctic tale, a walrus getting eaten by a whale. Yes, a really badly sung spoof of a Johnny Mathis song to start off this video. The kids will love that. Do you know what else they love? Bloody animals. Cute ones anyway, like polar bear cubs, say. Now this fella, this walrus, he might struggle to appeal to a little girl who loves unicorns, even if he can whistle. So, we've got another mid-2000s snow-based animal documentary Nintendo handheld license game, hot on the heels of March of the Penguins. What a subgenre that is, eh? This time though, we've gone from the Antarctic to Santa's backyard in the North Pole as we explore the lives of two animals rather than just one. That is, a family of walrus and a clutch of polar bears. This is again a production of the National Geographic, just 2 years on from their enormous success of the previously mentioned Waddling Bird's own feature film. Whereas that movie just featured the 8-month mating ritual of the beaked butlers, Arctic Tale follows these blubbery northern units for a whole 15 years like a spurned stalker. The focus of this film are two female creatures of each species, Nanu, the polar bear, and Sela, the walrus, and we see them from their birth until they start families of their own, thanks to the diligent work of the filmmakers and their 800 hours of footage. We see the beasts hunt, survive, and look for meat in the treacherous conditions of the Arctic Circle. Now, it's a little bit of a cheat because Nanu and Sela aren't actually real, but instead collected footage of multiple animals of the same species. But these experiences are typical of these poor creatures and what they had to deal with. And you know what? You can't tell these polar bear cubs or these walruses apart, can you? No, because you're a racist. Speciesist even. There's also, obviously, your now prerequisite with all nature documentaries, global warming warning, so you can feel terrible for wanging a Scampi Fry packet in that privet hedge on the way home. Directed by wildlife cinematographer Adam Ravitch and narrated this time by Queen Latifah, Arctic Tale failed to repeat the success of the March of the Penguins. Whereas that movie made an astonishing $128 million, Arctic Tale, albeit with less of a marketing push, did a mere $2 million. Quite the difference. Antarctic wins again, you landless Arctic bastard. You could say they were polar opposites, couldn't you? You could. Zoo Publishing, under their previous name of Destination Software Incorporated, actually completed the hat-trick of available Nintendo consoles by releasing their title based on the Arctic Tale on not only the DS and the Game Boy Advance, but also the Wii as well. You won't be hearing about the Wii one from me as I haven't played it, but it had fairly middling scores in the press, of the time ranging from 20% to 61%. The overall structure of the game is largely the same, only you get a 3D Arctic tundra to explore. Ooh, it's so realistic you can feel the bloody cold, can't you? Both the late 2007 Wii and the handheld versions were programmed by a company called Atomic Planet Entertainment, who also did games based on licenses like Jenga, Beverly Hills Cop, Paddington Bear, Real Madrid, Jumanji, and yet another National Geographic IP in Sea Monsters, a prehistoric adventure. Who knew there were that many National Geographic games, huh? Will I cover that one? Maybe, but not now. It's December when this goes up and the water is not icy enough for vaguely Christmassy themed content, and the Ichthyosaurus has too low a number of appearances on Christmas cards, unlike penguins and unlike polar bears. The game, much like March of the Penguins, is largely identical on both the DS and the Game Boy Advance. Where better for shovelware than snow, eh? The animation on the DS version is definitely a bit crispier, and the music ever so slightly better mixed, but other than that, I'm going to use the same rule that I used for the Penguin game and go for the Game Boy Advance version for the most part. This is due to the fact that it looks better to show one screen rather than two screens on top of each other that gives us a side border fatter than a walrus's butthole. There's no touchscreen functionality on the DS. This truly is shovelware. You start your adventure as a young bear, presumably Nanu, as she leaves the furry warmth of her mother's teat and explores the white expanse on her own 4 paws. She doesn't call home, she doesn't write, ungrateful little shit. But what a world to explore. There's a snow level, then even more snow, then a frosty area, endless snow, the Arctic. Yes, it makes for quite the dull-looking game. There's no real agency to this either. You just scoot about surviving because nature is boring and God has poor storytelling skills. This is all you do. You just survive. This is like an existentialist crisis video game. All you do is just live. It's so pointless. God, I'm depressed just thinking about this game already. Nanu pads about trying not to die by avoiding cannibalistic male bears and eating what looks like, I don't know, cherry ice cream cones? Pizza? Is it just supposed to be meat? I don't know. If it's the first two, that's not very realistic. If you collect enough paw prints and gain gold in enough minigames, you can progress to the next part of Nanu's story, which culminates in her reproducing like a teddy bear virus. The emptiness of existence once again, the pointlessness of life. But unlike this life, you're not alone. If you dive in a cave, you get the option of being a different animal. Not only can you be Sealer, the Arctic walrus, who while lumbering on land can take to the inaccessible chilly waters under the ice shelf and find bonuses, but there's also a sprightly Arctic fox who can charge about like Billy-O, rending hairs apart with his maw for an energy boost. There is also a level that briefly has you splashing about as Free Willy. Orca? More like Dorka. Scattered around the wild, you'll find a variety of minigames, some specific for each creature, and some that can be played by all three of your main mammalic heroes. As Nanu, you can try and steal food from your sibling, so the weak-ass prick dies hungry and alone in the snow. Survival of the henchest, sapling dickhead. This is done by tapping L and R as quickly as you can. Another one has the polar bear lying in the middle and you're doing some sort of whack-a-mole, only with Arctic hares, and presumably you're eating them afterwards. There's one where you perform curling but with a mammal. That's pretty unusual. And there's another one where your chosen animal will surf on an ice platform as you dodge icebergs. I'm sure these scenes were extra features on the DVD. Sure they were. None of these games are particularly creative or impressive. They're sort of the thing that were 10 a penny in the early days of E-Bomb's World or Newgrounds. And within the hour, your adventure will be at the end. You'll be left feeling unfulfilled, just like real life. Despite the Legend of Zelda perspective, there's nothing nearly as interesting or engaging with this game. There's just nothing creative about it. If the polar bear could maul some seals or do something vaguely polar bear-y, it might be just a little bit more interesting. Instead, it just sort of shuffles about trying not to die. A delicate polar bear snowflake afraid of its own shadow. Perhaps they could have done some sort of storyline that involved the three creatures engaging in some manner. Start as a fox maybe and have it go on lots of little adventures eating hares and avoiding polar bears until one day a polar bear unfortunately snatches it up and gobbles him down. Then you go on the polar bear's adventure, doing some of the polar bear-y things I just explained. You know, spreading fear on the icy plains as everything else is edible. Then that bear could get dragged into the ocean by a walrus after eating one of its young, and you'll get a few water-based levels as that walrus before that's eaten itself by the orca. End the game as like a baby Arctic fox nibbling on the beach carcass of the killer whale. You got the circle of life there. You could put little facts on the top screen of the DS version, like sort of explaining little things about animals, so it's educational as well. There were ways to do this, and it's ended up just being a bit boring. You could have had the mini-games blend into the narrative to break it up a bit. See, there was a way to use this engine, but still make it interesting. Yeah, I get this is targeted at ankle biters, and what I've proposed is a little bit violent, but that is nature. That is life. They need these things to prepare them for adulthood. Animals are often bastards, but they're bastards for a reason, survival. And life is short, horrendous, and pointless. Children need to know this. Mainly because I know this, and I'm fed up of them being all happy around me. IGN gave us a review in October 2007. They said Arctic Tale is slow-paced and mostly boring, which is likely in keeping with its roots as a documentary film. But it doesn't work at all in the form of a game. As it stands, you'd be better off just watching the film and being done with it. They gave it a 3.5 out of 10 next to the word awful. Just like life, eh? Still, nothing shakes me out of this existential angst quicker than boobies. And those just so happen to be the subject of our 2023 Christmas special, as Maria Whittaker shows us just what's in Maria's Christmas box. Whoa. Let's make it crunchy underfoot this December the 25th, not from the snow, but from all the wankers' crisps. That was crass. Like, subscribe, and K, thanks, bye.